All right, let's get started. Once again, hello everyone. I'm DJ, the head of marketing at Entitled, and thank you for making it to the event today. Um, a vast majority, or good chunk of the registered attendees are on the call, so we are good to get started. I'll run through a few ground rules and then introduce a host, and then we'll head on to our speaker. Let's move to the next slide. Couple of do's and don'ts. You will see two options at the bottom of your screen. The Q&A area is for asking questions to the speaker, Leo, and the chat area. There's another icon that you'll see that says chat. That's the area for reporting any audio issues or any technical difficulties that you may be facing. Once again, the Q&A area is for questions to the speaker. The chat area is to talk to the technical team in case you're running into any trouble. The recording would be shipped to you after the event. We have your email IDs with us. Not all of the content may be shareable directly with the audiences, but we'll try our level best, as we always do, to get as much as possible in your hands. So with that, quickly let me introduce our host, Vivek Joshi. He's the CEO of Entitled. He's been phenomenally instrumental in conceptualizing and galvanizing the Industry Next movement in the last 1 year. We've had multiple events, and there's just a lot that has been done to bring together the industrial OEM sector. So, Vivek, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, DJ. I'm excited to be here, folks. Industry Next event. This is the third event of its kind. The first one, which is dedicated to a specific topic. Just a quick blurb on Entitled. We're a software as a service company that is really built to help industrial OEMs maximize the value from their recurring and repeatable revenue streams. What I mean by that is typically things like parts and consumables and service contracts. These are the things that have immense value to manufacturers, and we are focused entirely and solely on that market and helping companies win there. Next slide, please. I'm always asked, Vivek, so why did you guys do this thing called Industry Next? And, I repeat the same story every time, which is, we talk to people like Leo, like some of the other customers you'll see on the next page, some of the people in the industry, and we ask them all the time, say, listen, if you want to go find ways to go engage and interact with people like you, people who have similar priorities or similar concerns as you, where do you go? And the resounding answer we kept getting back from people again and again is, honestly, there's no place to go do this forum. There's no forum such as this. There's no community, if you may, that's really focused and dedicated on our needs. And so that gave us an idea saying, hey, listen, along the way for us, if we can create this community, you can get a sense of belonging and kind of drive some activity in this thing, it'll be a really brilliant thing to go do. So we actually got this movement going. We had our first event in September. Next page, please, Leo. We had an event in September, and over the last 6 to 9 months, we've actually collected about 2,600 members in this community from a whole lot of different companies from multiple verticals, both from Europe, Asia, all from Europe, Asia, and the US. And so really, really excited that the kind of job descriptions or the kind of responsibilities people have are really numerous and very, that really gives us a sense of how people are thinking about this. Next page, Leo. So, you see a number of logos out here. These are people who attended in the past, who are attending today. And fundamentally, it's a movement we started with. We're really proud to keep encouraging and strongly building going forward. Next page, Leo. So when I think about where we are today, I mentioned that we started this movement in September with the first Industry Next event. We had great speakers back in the mid-September timeframe. Since that time, we've held a couple of other big events. The first one is data and digitization. The second one is about what next for 2021. Back then, we had multiple speakers at each event, which is interesting. But it's very clear that along the way, we were kind of had to kind of start figuring out ways to focus on certain topics. So with that, one of the top things that people ask us about a lot is saying, hey, what about pricing? Pricing is really an important lever for growth. How should we think about it? And when we started looking through our network, through the community, I could not think of a better person than the one we have today, which is Dr. Leo Stevens. I'm really, really fortunate to have got to know Leo many years ago. At the moment, he is the Senior VP of Pricing Analytics and Commercial at Cole Palmer. But really, over the last 15 years or more, he has really been focused on pricing, the lever it is, the strategic lever and tactical lever. And with that, I'm going to turn this mic over to Leo for the next 20, 25 minutes. It'll be Really informative session. I'm excited about the content he has to share with you. And with that, Leo, over to you. Please take it away.
All right, thank you, Vivek and DJ. I appreciate the comments. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone here. I'm glad you're here. Hope to have a very informative session for you today. And at the end of the session, or in the middle of the session, I'm going to give you 2 tools that will allow you to go get some price and to not drive away customers. So with that, we'll begin with a couple of quotes. And Warren Buffett, as you know, is a highly valued investor around the world. He has this quote: "Price is what you pay, value is what you get." And quite frankly, in my 20 plus years of pricing, value is what I look at all the time. Price is a means to create value for customers, for shareholders, and for owners. Second quote that I have is from a lady named Catherine Payne. And if you've not heard of Catherine Payne, she's often called the Queen of Measurement. And she's written a couple of books. One is Social Media Measurement for Dummies. She prides herself in her company, KDP and Partners, and a Delahaye Group, on measuring anything that can help you understand your business. And this quote in one of her books: "The moment you make a mistake in pricing, you're eating into your reputation or your profits." So not only do I value our customers' inputs, but I'm very careful with whatever we do in any company that I'm at, that we work with, is not make a mistake in pricing, because that's the first thing that's going to happen, is you're going to drive a customer away. So the tools that I'm going to give you today, the discussions we're going to talk about, you'll see it's really all about making sure that you don't make a mistake in pricing to drive away your customers, and you are increasing value for yourself, for your company, for your shareholders, and for your customers. So we'll start with a quick poll. Which of the pricing strategies do you use today? Here's a number of them. I think DJ's launching a quick poll. You just click off the one that you use the most. As you do that, we'll look for some answers, and we'll talk about these. So some of these you may have heard of, you may have used: cost plus, your best estimate of what the price should be. Some companies say, look, our job is to match our competitors, or we look at, we want to be slightly below our competitors. Today we're going to talk about strategic pricing, but when the poll comes up, I will kind of give you some results of what that looked like. Maybe we pause for 10 seconds or so as you click the poll numbers. All right, so when I look at the poll results, hopefully you can see them on the screen. About 35% did cost plus, 18 market will bear, best estimate, standard, yearly price. So really 4 kind of hit the mark: strategic pricing, yearly price increase across the portfolio, best estimate, and cost plus pricing. I will tell you that in pricing, when you talk to pricing strategists, there's a pricing mantra that Thomas Nagel, who back in the early 90s wrote books about strategic pricing, has a mantra that we all pretty much follow, and that goes: cost plus pricing is the road to hell. And we'll talk about why that is later. But we're going to talk about strategic pricing today. So first off, what is pricing? Slide, there you go. Is pricing a science? Is pricing an art? You may have seen some of these tools where people calculate price elasticity or win-loss analysis, or they look at value pricing and say, what value are we getting? What are our benefits of services? What are our benefits of product? What are our benefits of brand? But pricing is actually much simpler than all these scientific tools. Pricing is the most powerful lever you can pull in a company. If you increase price 1%, it's 1%, $1 on $100 in the United States, in the S&P 1000. I've also done this work with the S&P 500. Harvard Business Units has looked at the top 50 companies, the top 100 companies, the top 500 companies in the United States, and looked at the effect of price on profit, on variable costs, on volume, and in fixed cost. and anywhere from 11% to 12.3% increase in profits by pulling that price lever 1%. And again, we'll talk about 1%. I've often said that my job is to pick up pennies, lots and lots of pennies. And by doing that, you can get profit. If you think about a product you may sell, a part, for example, that you sell for, make it simple, $10.75. If you charge $10.81, will people still buy the part? Yes. And you made 4 cents on that part. And how many do you sell a year? Maybe 10,000. And you do that across 300 parts, you've actually made some real money with just a small, slight move. So that's the type of analysis we're going to give you to allow you to pull this pricing lever and get that 1% price. Vivek asked me, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Leo, can I ask you the other part of the discussion on the pricing profit part is it's a really what I would say an easy path to growth. Maybe you can comment on that, your experience in terms of how people use price as a growth lever as well.
Yeah, that's great. So we do a lot of work in private equity to help. And private equity wants to certainly grow the business so they can sell it off. And when we pull the price lever, without driving away customers, when I've done this, I've never lost a customer. I can get 2% price, which relates it, and actually falls to the EBITDA line. So if you're making 50% EBITDA for ease of use, that's 4 times revenue. So by pulling the price 2%, you can get 8% in growth just by pulling the price lever slightly, a 1 or 2% pull. And again, over the years, the first thing I always do in a company is pull the price lever between 1.5% and 2%. Most customers do not view that as egregious. And again, the example I gave earlier, going from $10.75 to $10.86 on 1,000 parts a year, you make some real money without driving away customers. So keep that in mind. 1% increase will give you about 12% increase in profit. Or if you want to look at that in revenue at 50%, it's 24% growth for doing something very simple. Years and years ago, before I even knew about pricing as a sales rep, every year I would increase my prices about 0.5% more than what my company said to do. I did that by changing my discount level, and I always made my numbers. My boss was like, how do you always make your number year after year after year? And it was because of that simple tool that I used.
Right.
Look at pricing. This is a diagram. On the vertical is price from low to high, and on the horizontal is volume from low to high. And almost every company that doesn't have a pricing platform in place looks like the screen on the far left. So you have some customers that buy very low volume, and I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but they get high prices. You see some very big customers that buy a lot of volumes also getting high prices. And if you're one of these customers that buys a lot from a vendor, or if you have a customer that buys a lot from you and they're getting higher prices than someone that buys very little, they're not happy about that. So one of the first things you do is move to the screen that shows the middle basic. You set some simple standards in there. So basically people that buy a little bit from you are paying higher prices than people who buy a lot. And then as you work through pricing over a couple of years, usually you can move from the basic to the intermediate, where you have differentiated standards for different customers. You may have differentiated standards for different markets if you operate in multiple markets, as well as differentiated standards for customers that may have variable products they buy from you. And one of the things that we look at, we'll talk about segmentation here, you want to also segment your products as well as your customers. The advanced and complex standards that you see on the right, if you have done any work with airline seat pricing, that is what that looks like. So depending on when you call, depending on what flight you want, depending on what destination you want, you could pay price all over the map, and it's based on a lot of different factors. And when you get to that level of pricing, everything that you do from a current standard to these basic and intermediate, you can do in Excel or Access or with a BI tool like Tableau or ClickSense. When you get to the advanced complex things, you really actually need to have a pricing tool. And everybody that gets to this uses a pricing tool. And there's a number of vendors that we can talk about that would use those tools. So how can you approach pricing? You can look at value pricing, which is one part. You can look at strategic pricing, which we're going to talk about. Benchmark margins. So as a company, you may have been told, we expect this product line or this customer segment to achieve these type of margins, and pricing can help you do that. Competitive-based pricing. I'm actually going to show you a tool where you can understand what your competitors are charging customers without actually having to go out and find out what they're charging. And then we'll talk about that. And then cost plus pricing, which a lot of people still do today. It's simple, it's easy to use, and people have done it for years. It's the basis of ABC cost accounting, but there's much better techniques to do than cost plus pricing. I'm not going to go through everything on this, but there are some tools you need or some information you need before you do any pricing. So, first thing is, what volume are you doing? What's the product number? Do you have current purchasing from the existing customer? So these are just some basic tools to help you understand just some basic things that you need. Almost every one of these can be pulled from invoice data. So when I look at a new product line or a new market, I look at our what we sold in that market to customers at invoice data level, because you get price, you get quantity, you get volumes, you get customers. If you know your customers, you can segment them into different channels, and you get packaging size. So just some things that you need when you go to address pricing. There's a number of things that we can look at in pricing methodology that we consider in more advanced states. Particularly, what's your company's position? Are you a sole source, or do you have many competitors? What's the value of your product to the customer? Is it a commodity, or is it an exclusive or a semi-exclusive? When I worked at Avantor, we looked at plant utilization to help set pricing. What is our, how's our plant operating? Is that 50% capacity? We want to get to 70. Can we do some things with pricing? So again, right now I'm giving you some overviews of different things that we look at. And again, when you delve into pricing, there's a whole variety of things you can look at. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you 2 tools that you can use today without a lot of these things in here. So at that point, I'm going to pause for just a minute. I don't know that I can see if anybody's asking any questions, I haven't seen anything pop up on my screen.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions coming in, Leo. And DJ, you want to go ahead with those questions, if you don't mind?
Sure. Thank you. So the first question we have is from Ron Giantini. He's asking, when you talk about 1 to 2% price increase, is that across all products, or is that weighted?
So that's a great question. You can look at it as weighted, and we'll talk about experimentation and pricing in just a minute. Typically, when we make a price move, we do a small test study first, and it may be a market, or it may be a product line that we test on, and then we expand it out to other products and other markets. And so 2% is generally a weighted average of the price increase. There's some products that I may increase. I've actually increased prices on products 30, 50, 300% based on a number of factors, and I've increased prices 0.25%. So the 2% is a weighted average.
Thank you. The other question we have is from an anonymous attendee. What do you mean by packaging size?
So units. So if you think about buying, you can buy a 6-pack of Coke, you can buy a 12-pack of Coke, or you could buy a case of Coke with 24, or maybe even a pallet. So that's packaging size. Depending on your industry, some people sell things only as eaches. In my company, we sell each, packs, cases, and pallets. So when I say packaging size, it's the how many are in each SKU, stock keeping unit.
All right, thank you. Those are the 2 questions we had.
And Leo, quick question for you on that packaging piece. Isn't packaging or changing packaging a unit of measure, if you may, a really good way to increase prices at the lower end?
Yes, absolutely. So you want to make sure that you're not charging the same price for an each as you are for a case.
Correct. Right. Thank you.
All right. So moving on, in 2021 with COVID, we've actually looked at a number of things, and there's 4 things that many pricing practitioners feel you should do. Is number 1, have a strategic approach to pricing based on segmentation. Have a tactical approach that allows you to get value, as we've already talked about on each's cases, different units of measure. To make sure you measure price to see if you're driving away customers or losing volumes with your products, and then really built in a price policy. So we call it a commercial DOA, delegation of authority. And in almost every company that I've worked with, I've had customer service reps that continually give away price because customer asks for it. They may buy 1 unit and say, "Can I get a better price than that?" And my customer service rep, "Sure, I'll give you 10% off." Which, why would you do that? So we build in these delegation of authorities to limit who can make price discounts. So what can you do today? And this is where we get into the actual tactical piece of it. And again, I have my email at the end, more than happy to respond to your questions on emails, after the fact when they send this out and you look at that. You actually will want to run through a couple of examples and just shoot me a note and I'll be happy to respond. So today, the first thing you can do is segment your customers. And, I look at by business unit, I segment customers by region. I look at different markets. I segment by revenue, high customers to low customers, and then product mix. So what's our most popular products versus the least products? The 2 tools I'm going to give you today are core status and type size index, and I'll get into that next. As I said earlier, you want to make sure you measure your price moves and the effect you're having. You get a lot of information on what you've done after the fact and how it affects your profitability and your customers, whether they grow, shrink, or I've never had anybody leave, but it could happen. And then build a price policy. So let's get into the actual tactics. So the first thing that I told you about is that you can actually find out some competitive information without ever knowing what your competitors are charging. And so as you understand what your customers buy from you, if you take a customer that is buying 50% of their sales from a small group of products, and if you take a customer and take 2 or 3, 4 years history of their sales, depending on whatever you have, and you take the top 50% of the sales and you look at the SKUs that they're purchasing, you'll understand that those are the top SKUs they buy from you. If you look at another customer that's in the same industry and the same size, and they have a different product mix, that means your competitors are getting that business and you're not. And so when we look at those top 50% of SKUs, we call those core A. Those are products that your customer is very price sensitive. If you do grocery shopping at your house and you go to the grocery store and you buy milk and bread, you know what the price of milk or bread should be. For example, if you go to the grocery store and you go to pick up a loaf of bread and it costs $8 and you bought bread recently, you realize that is not a good price for a loaf of bread. And so there's something different about it. It's either unique or there's something wrong with it, or it's priced wrong, it's marked wrong, but you're aware of the price. If there's something you don't buy very frequently and you don't know the price, and it doesn't really matter what it is. If you don't know what the price is, I'll give you an example of something some people will know and some won't. If you go to buy a Rolex Submariner and you walk in the jewelry store and you say, "I'd like to buy a Rolex Submariner," and the guy pulls one out and says, "We have this one for $15,000. You have no idea whether that's a good price or a bad price, or there's one that you could get for $5,000, or why it's $15,000. They have diamonds on it. And so we call those non-core products. And non-core products are products where you can make price moves without fear of losing customers. So when you take a customer and you look at a couple of years of history, you find out what products fall in the top 50%, the next 19%. And these products we call core, and that means that they are price sensitive. If you do elasticity calculations, if you know what those are, you'll see that their elasticity is highly elastic. And so you want to be very careful with those price changes. And you also want to look at light customers to see what products they're not buying, because that means your competitors are buying them and your price is probably wrong if the quality is the same. The non-core products, again, the further you go down this list, the more price moves you can make. I mentioned I did a 300% price increase. I had a customer that it was the only customer that bought this product. He bought it once a year. It really messed up our production department because we never knew when he would order the product. He never would tell us. And you know, he wanted a 3-week delivery, which we pretty much had to shut down stuff and make it for him. And so I raised his price 300%. He called me up and said, hey, this is ridiculous. I'm not paying for it. And I thanked him very much. I said, thank you so much. You know, this is a pain for us to make for you. We never know when we're going to get the order. We've got to shut the plant down to make it. And, you know, thank you that you're not going to buy it from us anymore so we can quit making it. He goes, no, you don't understand. I have to have this product. And I said, well, this is your price if that's the case then. And after about 30 minutes of discussion, we agreed, you know, on a 250% price increase instead of a 300% price increase. And he would give me the time when he would place that order. But it was non-core, so he needed it. No one else had it, and we were able to raise price a lot. So core status is the first tool.
You know,
that
I think, yeah, and I think, Leo, as I'm listening to you, I think what it ties back to the question that Ron Giantini asked a few minutes ago, right? Which is, do you have a standard across the board price, or is it a differentiated price increase in a segment? And I think you just gave a classic example of, you know, what's important, what's core, what's non-core, and then you can adjust prices and, you know, understand the sensitivity of the price on the customer's behavior, right? And that's really important. The whole segmentation idea that you talk about is so important in this process out here, right?
Again, I'm noticing time, so I'm going to go relatively quick on the end of this because I'll leave time for questions. But the second tool, and again, this is one where you should work through an example, is we call it type size index or segment size index. And basically what you do is you look at the price a customer is paying for a product, and then you take that same product for a group of customers in the same market that buys it, and you do the simple calculation. So the price paid for customer A for product, $8.50. Price paid for the group, the average price $9. You get an index of 0.944 when you do this simple math. The beauty of this is it tells you if you subtract 944 from 1, you get 5.6. And that tells you that customer A is paying 5.6% less than customer B. Now, if you go back to this list, if that's a core A product for customer A and maybe a core B or a core C from the rest of the customers, that's probably a good price. If it's the same, if it's core A for both of them, you either need to raise price on customer A or lower price for everybody else because you're losing to the competitors. So how do you tell where that's at, whether raise or lowest price? So if it's a core A product, your target index should be around 0.93. So we were at 0.94, so that was close enough. If it's a core B, should be around 1, core C about 1.7. So these are just some simple standards to help you prove a concept. And I'm going to go back to the slide that I just went through very fast. When I say look at segment size, we size our customers too. So if you take all your customers and put them in deciles, 1 through 10, your top customers, the top 10% of the customers would be size 1, your bottom 10% of the customers would be size 10. That's your size in the type size index. The segment could be market, could be business unit, could be region. And so when we look at the average price for customers in a segment, that's the segment we're looking at and the size we're looking at. And again, I've given you a tool to help that. These two simple tools with one other piece of information will allow you to create a matrix that looks like this. So I have my core status for the product. I actually dropped in margin because I wanted to see where margin looks like. And then I look at my product itself. Is it a commodity? Is it differentiated? Is it an exclusive? I looked at the competitive industry. Is it highly competitive? Is it there's no competing products? And based on this information and the core status, I've been able to do some math and make some adjustments to give you, this is illustrative, this is for one of my products or one of my product groupings. And you can see that in areas that I'm having the greatest increase, it's because the competitive intensity is low or none, and the exclusivity is high. And if you look, core status A, I'm not increasing price as much as I am for core status E. Again, when I say average of 2%, this is where you really get the higher end, and then the commodity prices with highly competitive, that's where you might not get as much. But again, this is one that I actually did a couple years ago. After about 4 years of pricing, these numbers would be less the first year that you do it. So I'm going to stop there. I went through a lot of information fast. Really, you just should work through a couple of examples with core status and that type size index. Happy to, if you want to send me, a question or two, I can build you a quick Excel spreadsheet that shows you how to do core status. Really, it's just a sorting in Excel, and type size index is about the same. So I'm going to stop there for some questions and answers.
All right. So we do have one quick question that came in from Vignesh. He says, loved your journey. Which stage you faced resistance? This is in reference to the first half of the presentation.
So which state, which region? Is that the question? Which region?
No, where the journey of the price change. When you go through this journey, Leo, I think what you started with, most companies have a certain price book. When you come in and make these changes, you're going to face resistance somewhere, either internal to the company or outside in the customer base. And I think Vignesh's question is, where in that journey is the biggest source of resistance? Which is a great question, I think.
Yeah, it is. The biggest source of resistance for me has been with the sales team. So I have been able to get buy-off from the executive team. They understand it. The sales reps will tell you, and by the way, I was a sales rep for 20 years, so I know where the sales rep, sales management, so I know where they're coming from. They'll tell you, I know my customers better than you. And I've proven over and over again in the pricing journey, my math is better than what the sales reps know. So if you think of a company, one of your OEMs that have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 SKUs that they're selling, your rep, and each rep may have 100 customers. There's no way they can understand the price for 2,000 SKUs at 100 customers. Well, my math can. By segmenting the customers, by sizing the customers, by looking at core status, I can tell the rep, here's where you can raise price, here's where you can't. So it's a great question. So really, it's a sales team that will give you the most pushback until you prove it. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had 2 sales reps that joined the company 3 years ago. In our company, we have accelerators when you exceed 100%. And these 2 reps both had different approaches. One said, I know my customers better than you. I'm not going to do any pricing unless you make me. The other one said, I don't know anything about my customers. You convince me. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. And so at the end of the year, I called them both in the room. And I said, before I give you your final paycheck, I want to remind you of the discussion. And I said, the young lady, I said, ma'am, I let you do your own pricing. You were able to make $30,000 in commission, which is your target for the year. Congratulations. You hit 100%. Young man that did everything I told him, I said, you made $30,000 in commission plus $33,000 in accelerators and grew your business 40%. And I said, thank you for doing pricing with me. And her jaw hit the floor. Literally, she was shocked that he made twice as much money as she did by making a 1% pricing move. That's all he did.
It's actually, it's interesting you said that. And I think people forget that the ability to start changing prices is a differentiator, and the resistance sometimes is good, but if you understand the net impact that you're going to have in an individual incentive, it's amazing how you can get people to change, right? So invariably, this to the question Vignesh asked, you may get some resistance, but the what's in it for me is really an interesting aspect of the sale of the internal change process as well, right? To kind of directly tie to the commission structure and so on and so forth. It's 11:36 here in the central time zone. We're more or less out of time, but maybe we have one more. Leo, can we take one more question if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. DJ, you have the question in front of you. You want to quickly go through it?
Yep, I'll go through it real quick. So, anonymous attendee says, the webinar set out in the context of OEMs transitioning selling services. Does Cole Palmer employ such business model, and how is it affecting pricing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we have number of, we have an OEM team, we have a direct selling team, we have an indirect selling team where we sell through distributors. So we have a complete range of the spectrum. We also have our own products that are proprietary and exclusive, as well as we distribute products. And I have been doing pricing at Cole Palmer. I started in 2015. The lowest year I've ever had here was I got 4% price, which is we're a $500 million company. You can figure the math on that. It's it put a lot of money to the bottom line. And then last year I ended up at 5.6% realized price, which is 5% on 500 million in terms of EBITDA is a nice payback. So I've been fortunately the CEO that I work with, he and I have been together for 15 years. This is our third company together. He'll tell people, I have no idea what Leo does. I don't really care. He just makes me money and I'm happy with it. We've never lost a customer. So the flip side of what's the resistance you have, the sales rep, the flip side is if you have a CEO and a board of directors that believe in you, it also helps. Yeah. And I do this with a small team, by the way. The biggest team I had a $10 billion company that I worked for. We had about 80 people doing pricing. On a $5 billion company, I had 110 people doing pricing globally. Here for $500,000, I've got 7 people. So you don't need a lot of people to do it. Especially in the early stages, and you can make some real money for your company.
Yep. And I think what you said at the end is really important, right? As you go through this journey, you don't need to go try to conquer the world at one shot. You start taking small bites of it. You start doing some basic segmentation. You take a look at a core A versus core B versus non-core. You go figure out the exclusivity, the strategic intent, the messaging you're trying to do with pricing. And one by one, you can start knocking down these bowling pins. So it's really, really important to kind of think through the journey. So Leo, thank you very much for that. Folks, we're well past the time. So I really appreciate everybody staying online, especially Leo committing. I know he has a very, very busy day today. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to share your learnings and experiences and also take some questions. With that, what we want to do is complete the rest of the 2 minutes. We have a couple more sessions coming up. DJ, you want to, Leo, if you don't mind flipping the pages, maybe one before this. There you go. Oh, yeah. I think that one, there you go. Thank you. So we're going to have a couple more sessions. Today was a great session on pricing. The next one is on the install-based data platforms. And we're going to have an experiment. We're going to try to share some jobs and job openings and things like that, like a career day. We have some ideas we're working through with some partners of ours, and we're going to share that with you in April. So lots of good stuff coming up. Thank you very much, as always, people, everybody on the phone to help us make this a great success. And with that, in the US, have a good day. In Europe, good evening. And in India, good night. Thank you, Leo. And thanks for all your help today and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.